Hey there, Curtis here from SuperSend. Today I want to do a quick breakdown. I saw a post the other day that Adam Robinson put out where he was talking about how Taylor Heron, owner of a lead gen agency, was generating 8 million in pipeline for a company called Fixer by sending 4 million emails per month. And 4 million emails per month is a lot. Most agencies that have multiple clients don't even get there with a combined effort. This person's doing this for a single customer, one client, one product, and really like one email, which is great. What we'll do is we'll break down what does 4 million emails really mean. We'll break down some of the copy that he's using to get this amount of positive replies. We'll also understand how he uses what I call like kind of a permission email to be able to send links and attachments. And then at the end, we're just going to break down what it would cost to set something like this up, and then potentially what the ROI Fixer is seeing. So you could sort of map this out in your brain about, is cold email worth it? And I think this is a perfect example of what it looks like at scale. And so let's dive right into it. So sending 4 million emails, what's it really mean? I broke it down by the numbers here. And so it's like 181,000, emails per day, close to 400 emails per minute. And so he's definitely not doing this on, manually. Like there's a platform and a sequencer that he's using that's helping put this amount of gasoline on this fire, amount of horsepower behind what he's sending here. So let's break down the infrastructure. Like how can you actually send 4 million emails in a month? So you got to think like when you set up infrastructure for cold email, what you're really doing is you're setting up many domains, and on each domain, you have many inboxes. I drew like a short little kind of an example here. So when we talk about infrastructure, it's a domain on the top and its inbox is attached to the domain. And then this grouping is attached to a sequencer that's managing all of these pieces. And so as we look at what's required, I typically see cold email inboxes like for our customers. We typically tell folks don't send more than 25 cold emails per day. And really kind of less is more from a deliverability perspective, because also you've got warming emails that are happening at the same time. So you really want that inbox to be less than 50 total emails, and that's including warming per day. And so with that in mind, I use this as our baseline. And then I used about 22 sending days in a month. And so on average, he probably needs about 7,300 inboxes to accomplish this. And again, depending on if he's doing 30 emails or 35 emails or less, that number of inboxes can fluctuate, but it's really just a math equation based on how many emails per inbox per day. He is also, I mentioned warming. So he's warming up all of these inboxes. Likely it's his sequencer that's automating that process. But again, a continuous process that never ends. Warming is a thing that you will never stop doing, especially when you're sending cold email out of these inboxes. We talked about the domains. So typically you never want to see more than 5 inboxes per domain. So let's assume that he's got 5 inboxes on a domain. So he probably needs about 1,500 domains. And then he needs to make sure each of those domains is properly set up, DNS, FPF, DMARC. Again, probably using some automation and some tools and different vendors that are automating the setup, because I don't know if you've ever set up like DNS records on a domain, but it's anywhere from 4 to 5 domains, or I'm sorry, 4 to 5 DNS records. And there's not really a way to automate it if you're just doing it manually. Sure, you can put it on spreadsheets and do some CSV uploads if you're using a Cloudflare and stuff like that. But this is a tricky process, and he's doing it with a lot of domains. Typically with customers, when we set up a customer, it's 60 or 70 inboxes, a handful of domains, right? It's not 1,500. So there's a lot of management here involved. Domain structure, he's probably using some variation of Fixer's actual website. So something like this, probably more .com stuff or .co. And probably has some .io, just because the number of domains he's probably got a few different versions of that in there. He is also managing for all of those inboxes. So like just the deliverability. So thinking about, spam complaints, bounces, that's all happening in real time. And so if one inbox, gets too many bounces or spam complaints, maybe he's, pulling it out, rewarming it, or even just rip and replacing it, right? Killing the inbox and putting a new one in place. So a lot of management just to keep his deliverability high. This is probably the lion's share of his work on actually executing this. It's not the sending or the email copy. It's probably more managing the actual deliverability of like the inboxes and things like that. And then the last thing he needs to do this is he's got a sequencer. So I don't know which one he's using, but Smart Lead, Instantly, SuperSend, there's a bunch out there. I'm partial to SuperSend, but all of these platforms are built really well to manage all of the like the rotation of the inboxes, the domains. It's really just that orchestration layer where you're connecting all the pieces together, the copy, the sequence, the inboxes, and it's executing the sending on your behalf. So I think what's also interesting, we talk a little bit down here about, copy and why one email is enough, but I think it was good to call out specifically what he's doing in this first email and why the first email is like so critical. And so I took a screenshot of the actual email that he put in the post, and these were just the kind of the highlights of it. To make sure he's getting in the inbox, he has no links and he's using plain text only. Not even any HTML, which is great. He's prompting replies and he's getting high which creates high engagement signals to the email providers. And so what this really means is as a cold emailer, what you're trying to do is you want to get a reply to book a meeting. But like as you get replies, you can also use this reply mechanism to boost your deliverability. So there's like two things at play here. And so the way he's structured his email is like, one, to get a reply, but two, to like help him maintain his deliverability, because every reply is a plus in the deliverability book. And so I think that was really, really smart how he did that. And then the last piece is once somebody replies, it looks reply back with yes. Is kind of what his call to action is. When somebody replies, he's got some automation that allows a second email to be sent. And in that second email, he's now able to send a link because he got a reply from that first email. So that's why this first email, I think, is just something people need to really think about. When you're sending your first email, don't send the novel about how great you are. Send something that will evoke emotion to get a reply and start a conversation. Everything after that becomes really, really easy. You can put whatever you want in the email on 2 or 3. Okay, this is his kind of system, his 5-step process. He's uploading the full TAM list. So this TAM is millions of people. He's sending one plain text email. If somebody replies yes, he's got a secondary email following up with a link and instructions to use the product. He's got a clear call to action, which is the reply yes part. And then what's great is his sequencer is helping him manage this, but every 60 days, anybody that doesn't respond, he can just resend to, right? And anybody that bounced or unsubscribed, that's all managed by the sequencer's blacklist. So this initial big list is being whittled down every 60 days, every time he does this send, and likely he's refilling TAM as well on the top side. But again, he's able to repeat this every 60 days with a click of a button. It's pretty slick. We talked about this. He is handling replies with automation. He states that in the post. And again, just kind of sets expectations from the people that he's reaching out to. Reply yes, they reply. Instantly, they get the thing that they replied to, right? So if they reply yes, they're instantly getting the setup link. They're clicking it and they're going and sign up. Taylor's job is done at that point, and now it's on Fixer to get that customer to a closed one. So let's talk about this piece right here. We talked a little bit about why the first email was so critical, but I also wanted to just put this into perspective where the biggest learning from this you can take away from this, like infrastructure aside and TAM and the number of sends aside, is you don't need to personalize every single email like just for the sake of personalization. In the email that he's sending, there's actually not any personalization at all. And so if your offer is right and it's for the right person, you actually don't need to personalize that much at all. And so I went and found an example of a customer in SuperSend that does something similar. They have their platform, a part of their platform allows these specific type of salespeople to find leads. And so rather than like going down this crazy personalization route, they literally just email like this type of salesperson and say, hey, do you want 51,000 free leads to help you build pipeline right now? And if they reply yes, similar to Taylor's flow here, like they get a link to just go sign up and get access to this database that they offer as a part of their product. And in 30 days, 270 replies, and I think they sent it was like 2 or 3,000 people. But the point is one email, like it's literally just sending one email, generating 270 replies. Like that's a ton of inbound for their company. And so like this personalization that you see kind of out in the world right now, yes, it makes sense to do it. And with all like the AI tools that, things like Clay that'll help you like go research somebody's LinkedIn, figure out like where they went to school, like all that stuff. Like, sure, like that stuff's cool and there is a place for it, but there's also a place for doing none of that and just having a really dialed one email offer to the right person. So templates still work. At the end of the day, if you're giving somebody a solution to a potential pain they have, It doesn't really matter how personalized the email is because that pain is really relevant to them, and that solution is relevant to fixing that pain. He does. It looks like I think he in the post he does reference like a job title or an industry, but that's nothing compared to some of the personalization even we do here with our own campaigns. Okay, so the results. We talked about the strategy a little bit, but it's basically one email every 2 months, one ask, clear call to action. He's got no links in the first email, and light or no personalization, right? Not distracting from his offer and his core message. So what are the results? Generated 8 million in pipeline by sending 4 million emails. Like that's what it's about. That's the results he got. We didn't have any exact data around reply rates or conversation data, but he does state that Fixer went from 1 million to 10 million ARR in just 5 months. Now, was that all because of this campaign? Probably not, but this is a big number. 1 to 10 million in 5 months is absolutely insane. And so this is probably a massive lever that's helping him get there. Okay, so let's say you want to send 4 million emails a month. How much would this cost? I think this is a great exercise to go through because some people might see like what it costs and might go, wow, I can't believe that. That's so expensive. I could hire 3 or 4 people to do that. But when we talk about the ROI, you might think differently. So let's dive in. So inboxes, I put inbox cost about $250 per month. If he's going through any of the resellers, which I'm sure he is, he's probably somewhere between like $2 and $4 per inbox, but I just gauge this on the low end. And so he's got about 18 grand a month in inboxes alone just to manage this campaign. Domains, they're somewhere between 12 and 14 bucks a year. I just averaged it out to, $1 per domain per month. So maybe it's about 1,500 bucks a month in domains. And you would obviously, for him, he's buying all those. Those are annual costs. So there was a huge fixed cost up front buying those domains. But if you were to amortize it over a year, you're probably in that ballpark. Email warming was built into the platform, so we have a 0 line item there. And then his sending software, so whatever platform he's using, is probably somewhere between 5 and 10K a month. I say probably because if he's using that platform, across many clients, like maybe that cost would get sort of, maybe there's economies of scale there to be had. But just understand 5, 10 a month, 10K a month is probably what he's spending. And then total estimated budget, 25 to 30K. Like that's probably what he's spending per month to execute this strategy. So that's a lot of money. So then I went down and I looked at, okay, what are Fixer's plans, right? And so they have a standard plan at like 30 bucks a month. They have a professional plan at like 50 bucks a month. And so I averaged it out at like 40 bucks a month, depending on, people go left or right here. And I think they have an enterprise deal as well. So maybe that some of that pipeline could be like more enterprise, but I'm just using the data I have here. And so if it's 8 million bucks in pipeline, I assume that that's not closed won. I assume that that's just net new opportunities in the funnel. And if there's a 5% close rate, you can kind of see here, like almost 5 million in revenue just on a 5% close rate. If it's a 10% close rate, it gets closer to $10 million a year. Again, we have 8 million in pipeline. What I'm trying to share is how much of that business goes closed won, how much of it turns into real dollars, right? And so, either of these numbers are looking good from an ROI perspective. So if he's on the low end, 5% closed or K closed, 4.8 million annual revenue, he's still like a X ROI, and everything he spends in a year for that infrastructure is paid off in less than 1 month. So I think everybody's winning in a big, big way here. The ROI is 100% here, and cold email is very much alive. And if you wanted to execute something even close to this degree, I broke down a smaller example of what if you just wanted to send 100,000 emails a month, which is still a lot for most businesses. Like a lot of businesses come to us and think that they'll be sending that much, but they often like never really hit that number because they start to get targeted and they want like more relevant campaigns. And so 100,000 is still a lot a month for just like a single business. But how would you get there? 182 inboxes, 37 domains. So you still need quite a bit of infrastructure even to hit this number. And so, the takeaway here is anybody can do cold email. Anybody that thinks that cold email is not a channel for growth, here's proof that it absolutely is. And there's actually thousands of case studies out in the world that look just like this. Almost every B2B company in existence generally got their start or potentially even their first customers from cold email. And even companies that are rated at, that are valued in the billions still do cold email. Companies like Ramp, companies like Brex, like all of these companies are massive and they're still using cold email to get in front of customers because the ROI is just it's always there. It is a little more expensive today than it maybe was 5 years ago, but when you do it right, you can still get meetings booked, and you can start building that pipeline. So if anybody wants help setting up maybe a use case closer to this, give SuperSend a call. If you want a use case that gets you that 4 million emails a month, you can still give us a call. It's just going to be really expensive, and we're going to have to try to get that set up for you. But again, we want to make sure that, as you look at case studies like this, don't get overwhelmed with these big numbers and these big infrastructure and managing all of this. Companies like ours and the platforms we build help you do all of this stuff at scale.